Alstom has delivered to the Australian city of Perth the first train for the city's commuter rail system. The train was manufactured at the company's Australian plant using 50% local components. It consists of 6 cars, can carry 1,200 passengers and accelerate up to 130 km per hour. In general, the city has ordered 41 electric trains and 2 diesel ones for a total amount of €800 million. By the way, the Perth suburban rail consists of 6 lines with a total length of 181 km and uses the 1067 mm Cape gauge. In Perth, Australia, they opened a 14.5 km commuter rail extension from Butler to Yanchep, adding 3 stations to the Metro network. The travel time from Yanchep to Perth city centre is 49 minutes. The Yanchep extension, serving a population of more than 150,000, is expected to stimulate new employment opportunities as well as residential and commercial development. Construction work began in late 2019 and the opening took place almost 2 years later than originally planned. The construction cost almost $1 billion, I guess Australian ones, which was jointly funded by the governments of Australia and Western Australia. In Sydney, Australia, a new 15-km subway section has begun operation, finally connecting the system to the city centre. It starts from Chatswood Station, runs under the harbour and through the CBD Central Business District to the new Sydenham station south of the city centre. 2 of the 7 new stations, Central and Martin Place, have direct connections to the Sydney Rail's suburban lines, while others have slightly longer walking distances. In general, the Sydney Metro is a fairly new system. It was launched in 2019. Currently, the system has a total length of 51 km and 21 stations, and in the future it is planned to grow to 113 km and 46 stations. Meanwhile, in Australia, they started research drilling for the business case of a high-speed rail line from Sydney to Newcastle. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong photo. This one, Newcastle. The government has pledged to allocate $500 million to plan the line itself as well as to protect the corridor. The data collected from the drilling will help determine the proposed depth of the new rail tunnels, the geological and geotechnical conditions for crossing the Hawkesbury River, and the challenges associated with crossing the escarpment to the Central Coast and Newcastle. The government expects the business case to be ready by the end of 2024. Currently, the Sydney to Newcastle intercity rail line is the busiest in Australia, carrying 14.9 million passengers a year. Of course, this is a very early stage and the actual construction is quite far away, but the idea is very promising. John Lang has announced that he has increased its stake in Sydney's light rail network to 95% after signing an agreement to purchase a 62.5% stake from Aware Super, the public-private partnership that operates the network. The network carries more than 40 million passengers a year and having a transformative impact on the streetscape of central Sydney. Further growth of the light rail network is also proposed. This includes Altrak's proposal to extend the network by 11 km along Parramatta Road to Green Square via Central Station. This extension will support residential investment, revitalize Parramatta Road, and connect people to jobs, education, healthcare, and many more. In general, Sydney's light rail network is an important component of its public transport system, helping to reduce traffic congestion and vehicle emissions, as each light rail car can carry up to 450 passengers, which equals 9 buses. And which is much more important, hundreds of private cars. In Sydney, the John Holland Company has been awarded a $322 million contract to build 1.3 km of the new light rail line, including a 320-meter bridge over the Parramatta River. Design and preparatory work will begin this year ahead of construction, which will start next year. This will be the first major bridge to cross the Parramatta River since the completion of the Raid Bridge almost 40 years ago. The work will also include the modernization of adjacent public spaces such as Archer Park, for example. And the new as yet unnamed bridge will also become part of a 9.5 km pedestrian and bike route. By the way, Sydney's light rail has been operating since 1997, consists of 3 lines and 25 km of tracks, and carries about 40 million passengers a year. The Cross River Rail project in Brisbane, Australia has passed a key milestone as the train travelled for the first time through one of the twin tunnels under the city centre for almost 4 kilometers. Moving at a speed of about 5 kilometers per hour, the train went from the main yard to the new platform of the Roma Street metro station. The trip was a test of the project's concept in general and allowed several important operations to take place, including testing of the train's overhead power systems and the safety of traffic through the tunnel. Overall, the tunnels are expected to be completed in 2025 and start serving passengers in 2026. Cross River Rail is a new 10.2 km line that includes 5.9 km of twin tunnels running under the Brisbane River and city centre, with 4 new underground stations at Boga Road, Wollongabba, Albert Street and Roma Street. The project also includes a new surface station at Exhibition, reconstruction of 7 stations between Dutton Park and Salisbury, construction of 3 new stations on the Gold Coast, and building 2 new train depots. And right away, another news from Brisbane, where the first line of high-speed buses under the Brisbane Metro brand has started operating recently. Now, on line 169, which connects 8 Mile Plains with UQ Lakes, operate 3-section Hess light tram electric buses, 24 meters long, which can carry up to 170 passengers. These buses run at 5-minute intervals, and now the line's capacity has increased by 50%. Previously, this line carried up to 14,000 passengers on weekdays, and with the launch of the Brisbane Metro, this number will increase to more than 21,000. The launch of line 169 precedes the start of Metro lines 1 and 2, which are currently being negotiated with the Queensland government. Metro 1 will run from 8 Mile Plains to Roma Street, and Metro 2 from the Royal Brisbane Hospital and Women's Hospital to UQ Lakes station. And the launch of Brisbane's new bus network is set to match the launch of the Metro, which will increase the capacity of Brisbane's bus routes by 30 million passenger trips annually. You know, this news is a pure naming confusion. Buses of the light tram model are operating in a system called the Metro. If there is also a real metro on rails somewhere, I don't even know how to tell you about it without confusing anyone and getting confused myself. Production of Melbourne's first G-Class trams has officially started at Alstom's plant in Dandenong. In total, $1.85 billion, I guess Australian ones, will be invested in the next generation trams project with the support of the Victorian government, which will allow the purchase of 100 low-floor Class G trams as well as a maintenance station in Maidstone. The new 25-meter trams will have 3 sections and increased capacity of 150 passengers, which is almost twice as many as the current high-floor trams. Each tram is equipped with onboard energy storage system that captures braking energy, reducing electricity consumption during peak hours. The first new trams are expected to begin testing on Melbourne's routes 57, 59 and 82 in 2025. In Australia, the first Marion series passenger train has started operating on the line between Sydney and Newcastle. The company says that the first new intercity trains in almost 2 decades will provide the millions of passengers who use this line each year with a significantly improved level of comfort. The old trains were a hotspot for graffiti vandals and other antisocial behaviors, so the new ones will feature the most advanced video surveillance system. The modified Marion trains built by Hyundai ROTEM will gradually start running on the Central Coast and Newcastle lines over the coming months and then will be launched on the Blue Mountains and South Coast lines. And they will gradually replace the older fleet, including the V trains that first appeared in the New South Wales in the 1970s and the Oscar trains that debuted in 2006. And by the way, this last one looks pretty decent, I would say. And finally, in Australia, Siemens Mobility has presented a realistic model of a new car for a 23-kilometer-long metro line that will connect Sydney City and the Western Sydney Airport. The trains are to be fully self-driving and a total of 12 trains are to be produced. The total value of the contract, which also includes 15 years of maintenance, is 900 million euros. Meanwhile, in Perth, Australia, test trains began running on the new line between Thornlie and Cockburn, which was planned to be built in the last millennium, in 1999 to be exact. The first test train departed from the new Nicholson Road station on Monday and headed to Carlisle station along the new overpass. The 1.3 billion Australian dollars Thornlie-Cockburn link project includes 2 new stations at Nicholson Road and Ranford Road, as well as upgrades of Thornlie and Cockburn Central stations. The new 17.5 kilometers of new redundant tracks run parallel to the existing freight line and use tunnels built in 2000 that runs under the Kwinana Freeway as well as the Roe and Albany freeways. When passenger service begins later this year, riders will be able to reach Perth in 26 minutes from Nicholson Road station and 29 minutes from Ranford Road Station. The full opening is scheduled for mid-2025. Meanwhile, construction of a 1.7-kilometer extension of the single light rail line has begun in Canberra, Australia. The 577 million Australian dollars project, which is equally funded by the federal and Australian Capital Territory governments, is scheduled for completion in 2027. It will provide direct connections from Gungahlin and North Canberra to the Western City, the Australian National University, New Acton and Lake Burley-Griffin. 4 of the 5 CAF Airbus 3 electric and battery-powered dual-mode trams ordered for the line extension have already been delivered and 2 of them are already in operation. In May 2024, the federal government agreed to fund a $50 million design contract for the next phase, which will extend the line 10 kilometers from Commonwealth Park to Wotton with 9 new stops. And once the design is complete, construction is expected to begin between 2028 and 2033. Queensland officials have kicked off the $5.75 billion Gold Coast Faster Rail project, which aims to double rail capacity by 2032. Contractors will install roughly 20 kilometers of new tracks between Corabi and Beenleigh, increasing the corridor from 2 tracks to 4, reducing bottlenecks. Currently, trains travel on 1 track in each direction, causing delays during peak hours. In addition, they will also remove several level crossings to improve safety and reduce traffic congestion. Authorities expect this railway upgrade to help cope with heavy traffic during the Olympic and Paralympic Games. In Sydney has been completed excavation work on the new Hunter Street Metro station, which is set to become the busiest stop on the Sydney Metro's Western Line. The future station will serve as the terminus of Sydney Metro's 24-kilometer CBD line, which is expected to double capacity between Greater Parramatta and the city centre when it is commissioned in 2032. And it is planned to serve up to 10,000 passengers per hour. In 20 months, the construction team excavated more than 240,000 tons of material, and the resulting underground cave is 20 meters high, 28 meters wide, and 180 meters long. And by the way, the excavation process itself required special precision due to the station's location beneath the Sydney's densely built-up central business district. The work took place within 1.8 meters of the M1 subway line and directly under heritage-listed buildings, including the State Library of New South Wales. This station will be an important gateway to Sydney's west, taking people to Parramatta in about 20 minutes and connecting areas such as Sydney Olympic Park, Burwood, the Base, and the Westmead Medical District. From January 2026, the Australian state of Victoria will introduce free public transport for all children under 18 years to reduce cost of living pressures for families across the state. Eligible young people will receive a special card, giving them unlimited access to trains, trams, buses, and regional coaches across Victoria. The card remains valid until the child turns 18, replacing the annual $755 student pass. Transport Minister Gabriel Williams said the plan delivers real cost savings, making life easier for working parents. And also, she emphasized that lowering transportation costs and reducing the need to drive will reduce daily stress. In addition, young people will have better access to part-time jobs, sports, and social activities. The free public transport initiative is expected to cost $318 million over 4 years. Despite the investment, the government insists that the benefits outweigh the costs, as it will promote equality and support working families. Meanwhile, in Perth, Australia, the new Thornlie-Cockburn line and the elevated inner Armadale line were officially opened, improving the connection between the southeast of the city and its main part. The 17-kilometer Thornlie-Cockburn line is the first east-west cross-city service in Perth. It includes new stations at Nicholson Road and Ranford Road, as well as significant upgrades to Thornlie, Cockburn Central, and Perth Station. Passengers will be able to reach Perth in 27 minutes from Nicholson Road Station and 31 minutes from Ranford Road. There are also 1,400 parking spaces at all three stations, and over 20 new bus routes have been added to support the connections. The government of New South Wales has announced an order for 151 new electric buses for Sydney. And with this contract, the total number of new buses purchased in New South Wales since March 2023 is 921. In the long term, the zero-emission buses program aims to replace over 8,000 of the state's diesel and gas buses with battery-powered ones. At the same time, 11 depots across Sydney are already being adapted to work with electric bus fleet, and a dedicated electric bus depot is being built in Macquarie Park. The Queensland government has abandoned plans to extend the light rail system in the south of Gold Coast City. The fourth stage of the project, a 13-kilometer line from Burleigh Heads to Coolangatta, was estimated to cost between $3.1 and $7.6 billion. However, an assessment done by the Department of State Development found that now the cost could be as high as $9.8 billion. And the project also faced significant facing resistance from the local community, who feared that the light rail would encourage excessive development in the coastal suburbs. Meanwhile, the population of Gold Coast is expected to grow from about 650,000 to 1 million by 2041, which is why transport experts consider light rail to be an important means of reducing congestion. Overall, it looks that development of the tram network has fallen victim to political battles between the Queensland government and city authorities, who accuse each other of manipulating public opinion. So, for now, there are more questions than answers. Meanwhile, in New South Wales, Australia, they completed the introduction of new double-decker electric trains on intercity lines connecting Sydney with Newcastle and the Central Coast. 19 Merryong trains were purchased to replace the 45-year-old units on medium-distance lines running north of Sydney. A total of 610 double-decker cars were delivered, which will run in train sets of 4, 6, 8 and 10 cars. The next section on which Merryong trains will be launched is the So, the next section on which Merryong trains will be launched is the Blue Mountains line connecting Sydney with Lithgow and Bathurst in the west. They will start running there in October. To launch the new trains on the South Coast line, platforms are being extended to accommodate 10-car trains instead of 8-car sets. Tracks and power supply improvements are being made, and also Sydney Trains has completed the construction of new facilities for storage and maintenance of the fleet. Meanwhile, Melbourne, Australia has got its first new-gen Alstom G-Class tram. In total, the city has ordered 100 such trams for €1.03 billion, which are being built in Australia at the Dandenong plant. These trams are 25 meters long, have a low floor and can accommodate about 150 passengers. They are also equipped with batteries on the roof, which provide additional power during acceleration and store energy recovered through regenerative braking, providing energy savings of up to 40% compared to the previous generation. They can also take power from the overhead network when the tram is stationary or running on inertia, reducing energy consumption during the next acceleration. This so-called peak load smoothing helps to avoid peak current consumption, reducing the load on the power grid and substations. By the way, Melbourne now has the world's largest tram network, covering over 250 kilometers and more than 1,700 stops, with a fleet of over 480 trams. After almost a decade of construction, Melbourne's rail tunnel has officially opened, which is the biggest transformation of the city's public transport in the last 40 years. It includes two 9-kilometer tunnels with 5 underground stations: Arden, Parkville, State Library, Town Hall and Anzac, and is a part of a 97-kilometer line connecting the city's downtown with its metropolitan area. The project took 8 years to build and cost about $15 million. No, of course, $billion, not million, billion. The new stations have large spacious halls and 230-meter-long platforms, which allows them to accommodate 10-car trains. Each new station has a unique design, and two of them, State Library and Town Hall, were built using the closed method under dense urban area at a depth of about 30 meters. Of course, all new stations are designed in accordance with accessibility requirements and equipped with elevators and escalators. As a part of the project, they also ordered 65 new trains. In addition to the tunnel construction, the rest of the line was also modernized. For example, over a dozen level crossings were removed and a 9-kilometer railway viaduct was built. So, in short, this is a very cool and important project that definitely deserves a more detailed explanation. Meanwhile, the New South Wales government has signed key contracts for the 24-kilometre and 29 billion Australian dollars Sydney Metro West project. The new automated metro line between central Sydney and the western suburb of Parramatta will have 9 stations and is scheduled to open in 2032. 16 trains for the new line will be supplied by the Chinese company CRRC, while a consortium led by the Hong Kong Metro operator will be responsible for its operation. Also, John Holland will install 60 kilometers of track and rail systems, as well as build a 38-hectare depot for a total of 3.2 billion Australian dollars. The first 170-kilometre section of Australia's pioneering high-speed rail project connecting Sydney and Newcastle has secured 230 million Australian dollars in funding and has entered the project development phase. The 2-year 659 million Australian dollars development period is intended to ensure that the project, currently estimated to cost 55 billion Australian dollars, is construction ready by 2028. Once completed, the high-speed line is expected to reduce travel time between Sydney and Newcastle to 1 hour, and from the Central Coast to Sydney or Newcastle to 30 minutes. Preliminary work has begun in Australia on a rail link to Melbourne Airport, and the project starts with the 4.1 billion Australian dollars for development of Sunshine Station as a transport hub connecting the new airport line to the rest of the city's commuter rail network. The work includes laying 6 kilometers of new tracks, building 2 railway bridges, and redesigning passenger and freight tracks. The Sunshine Station itself will feature a longer concourse and 2 new platforms to connect the airport rail line directly to the metro tunnel, which fully opened last month, and regional rail lines. The airport rail link will have 2 new stations at Caulfield East, serving the Airport West area, and at Melbourne Airport. Work is scheduled to be completed in 2030.